This House of Lords case is unique for reasons that have nothing to do with the dispute itself. A company, the United Gold Coast Mining Properties, needed to raise capital for its mines in Africa. It approached 14 investors, offering them shares at £1 and an option to buy further shares at £1 during the following year, even if the price went up. Well, the price more than doubled, so Hilder bought the extra shares and made a killing. Another shareholder who didn't get that sweet deal sued, arguing that the option contravened a particular provision of the Companies Act 1900, which had quite recently been passed. Now, we're going to ignore that exercise in statutory interpretation, except to note that the court ultimately found that the deal was valid. The really interesting aspect of this case touched on purposive interpretation. See, if you think about it, purposive interpretation invites us to consider two things. What do the words of the statute say, and what did the person who wrote those words actually mean? In this unique case, the person who wrote those words was actually sitting on the bench in the trial, and that was the Earl of Halsbury. He basically declined to give a judgment, but his short statement was a pearler. He said, "The worst person to construe a statute is the person who is responsible for its drafting. He is very much disposed to confuse what he intended to do with the effect of the language which in fact has been employed." At the time he drafted the statute, at all events, he may have been under the impression that he had given full effect to what was intended, but he may be mistaken in construing it afterwards just because what was in his mind was what was intended, though perhaps it was not done. In other words, without for one moment undermining the purposive approach, the Earl of Halsbury was saying we must begin with the words themselves and ask what those words actually say. That has to be the starting point. Not what the drafter was trying to say, but what they actually said. Then we can ask what those words were trying to accomplish. The purposive approach is not an excuse for ignoring the words of the statute and pretending that we know what the Parliament was trying to say.